Hey, folks, what is up? This is Rich with Red Phone Video, and I'm gonna do a ranking video. Not like you haven't seen this shit before on YouTube, but you haven't heard it from me. So, what I wanted to do, by the way, this is gonna be about Friday the 13th. It's no surprise because I've been going through a Friday the 13th phase lately, and I've been watching all the films. I revisit the films normally like twice every year. It's a bit of an unhealthy phase, but it helps me cope with my depression, my anxiety. These films just, I don't know. I could watch them repeatedly. I could just watch Jason hack people up all day and just makes me feel good. But this is not a Friday the 13th ranking film. This is a ranking of the final girls. All the final girls. From the legacy films, anyway. The Friday the 13th Paramount franchise. I'm not going to be talking about the Jason films. None of that New Line cinema, Platinum Dunes bullshit. This is basically going to be all the legacy films, parts 1 through 8, and I'm going to talk about the final girls. I'm going to rank them. I'm going to judge them a little bit. I'm not going to judge them too harshly because I do love all of these girls. Don't get me wrong, but I am going to point out some things that I feel do need to be said. They've probably been said before. Like I said, in numerous videos, numerous articles, we've seen Friday the 13th Final Girl rankings before. But you haven't heard it from me, so I'm just going to give you my opinion. So we're not going to talk about Jason, but I wanted to kind of get the vibe going here with all this Friday the 13th stuff, this cool stuff. I even got my shirt on. So, let's just get right into it. Let's get into the ranking. So starting out at number 8, guys, I gotta go with Rennie Wickham in Friday the 13th, Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. Played by Jensen Daggett. I don't know about this girl. I don't even like the film. I'm not a fan of Jason Takes Manhattan. I think it's one of the worst in the franchise. But that's not the reason why Rennie comes in at number 8. I'm going to explain why she comes in at number 8. I feel like she's just a little dull. She's uninteresting. She's a weak leading lady, in my opinion. I mean, and not necessarily a weak heroine, but I feel like the heroine that those thugs give her in the third act of the film is a stronger heroine than she is. It's just an underwhelming performance. And I don't think the aquaphobia thing is interesting at all. I feel like they could have made that more interesting if they had delved into her traumatic experiences more, but she's just not a fully fleshed out character to me. I can't really get invested completely because she's not very relatable, and she's a very human character. There's parts where you can tell like she saves her dog from getting shot. By those thugs in the city. I mean, she has likable qualities, but I feel like Jensen Daggett just doesn't quite land it for me. I don't know. I feel like it's a bit of a lazy performance. And she's got a certain look to her that's affable, but I think in the long run she's just not she just doesn't do it for me. And Jason Takes Manhattan period doesn't do it for me. I always have fun when I watch the movie, but the movie as a whole it's just not very good, guys. And I wasn't interested in her love story. There's an interesting little subplot with her and McCulloch, and the fact that Jason was in the water that her uncle pushed her in, and you know, I don't know. I just didn't buy into that. It could have been interesting, but anyway, I don't want to talk too much about Jason Takes Manhattan. But Rennie Wickham, played by Jensen Daggett, probably my least favorite, if I'm being honest. But yeah, that's number 8. Coming in at number 7 is Pam Roberts. Now, I do love Part 5. I don't think it's a great film, but it's one of the ones that I revisit the most. And Melanie Kinnaman, that plays Pam Roberts, I think does a good job. I don't blame her completely, but I feel like the character Pam is just she's not fully fleshed out. You can tell that she's really caring, she's very nurturing, and, she hangs out with Reggie. And I feel like she's really good at taking care of Tommy and Reggie, and she seems like she has these very maternal qualities about her. And like I said, Melanie Kinnaman's performance is top notch, considering the material she was given. I mean, it's basically a borderline porn film. Part 5 is very schlocky, directed by Danny Steinman. And of course he was just a sleazy dude, and I don't hold that against him. But I do kind of blame him and the writers for some of the shortcomings of Pam's character. She spends most of the time, just running around screaming, and and she does have a cool scene with a chainsaw where she really dukes it out with or not Jason, but Roy, and that's cool. That's probably like her most standout moment right there is when she pulls out that chainsaw. But other than that, it's Tommy's movie. It's all about Tommy, and even Reggie kind of overshadows her a little bit in the third act. And you care more about Reggie and Tommy than you do Pam. She just seems like she's a little understated, in my opinion. They could have went further with the whole Pam character, but I don't hold anything against Melanie Kinnaman, like I said. With the material that she was given, Melanie Kinnaman, had they spent a little more time with her character, I think she would have been definitely more of a standout final girl. But other than her looks and the little bit of personality that they gave her, I just can't fully connect with Pam. And also feel like they spent too much time at the beginning with Matt, the guy who ran the institution. And had it been her, had it been Pam that sort of ran the institution, I feel like you could have fleshed her character out a little bit more. But anyway, that's Pam Roberts, Melanie Kinnaman. I love Melanie Kinnaman, but Pam Roberts coming in at number 7. That's it. Now, number 6, and I know a lot of people are probably going to disagree with me on this, but Tina Shepard in Friday the 13th, Part 7, The New Blood, played by Laura Park Lincoln. Now, a lot of people really love this character, and I do too. I don't hate Laura Park Lincoln. I don't hate the character, but I do have my qualms. I do have my reservations. When I watched that movie, I'm sorry, I'm just not that interested in Tina. I know she's definitely, she's experienced the most trauma, with the exception of maybe Chris from the third one. But, just because she has the most trauma, it doesn't necessarily make her the most interesting. She has a lot to contend with in the movie. Dr. Cruz, the fact that, she harbors a lot of guilt, for killing her dad. And, that's another thing. Tina brings Jason back. And I don't really think that really hurts her character any. That's just another thing that she has to overcome. But maybe it's Laura Park Lincoln's performance that I find just to be a little dry. I don't feel like she was really into that film. And there's definitely a lack of chemistry between her and Kevin Blair, the guy from The Hills Have Eyes Part 2. I don't feel it. I don't feel the chemistry, and she's only the most formidable final girl, honestly, because of her telekinetic powers. I mean, she is like Carrie White, and she can basically kick Jason's ass anytime she uses her pain and her trauma. She can sort of channel all that, and of course she's going to kick Jason's ass. I mean, Jason couldn't really have a chance to fuck her up. And I know a lot of people like that about her character, the fact that she's just this badass, but it almost feels like she just doesn't want to be a part of that film. But I will say the fact that she uses all her pain and emotion to fight and prevail at the end, that's something that is fun to watch. It's fun to watch her, electrocute Jason. It's fun to watch her, tighten up his hockey mask towards the end. That was badass when, he starts oozing pus out of his head. And there's just cool parts. I mean, the part when she brings the whole fucking roof down on him and then she hangs him with the wire, I thought that was cool. But all in all, I just don't connect with the Tina character. I don't love her. But she is a strong, resolute type character that you root for. But I just feel like she's a little underwhelming. You also feel sorry for Tina a little bit because everybody's kind of picking on her throughout the movie, but again, I'm more interested in like the Maddie girl, the one with the glasses. I'm more interested in her. Next up at number 5, I'm going to have to go with Alice Hardy, played by Adrienne King. Now, a lot of people might disagree with me on this. Maybe not. I've heard from a lot of people that they don't particularly care for Alice. To be honest, I love Alice. I love Adrienne King's performance in the first film. The first film is actually my favorite out of all of the films. But Alice as a character is just, she's not very active a lot of the time. It seems like she only really takes action when she has to. And I've said this before about Jamie Lee Curtis in the original Halloween. I feel like she's not the greatest scream queen in the world. She just responds, she reacts, and that's not a very interesting active character for me. But I do love Adrienne King. I was actually kind of sad when they killed her off in the second one. I remember when I first saw part two and they killed Alice off. I was really surprised by that. But my complaints with the Alice character, and I don't have many, by the way. Like I said, I love Alice, I love Adrienne King, but my only complaint about her is the fact that she's only really driven by her survival instincts and nothing else. I mean, she just seems like a little bit of a one-dimensional character. But I do think Adrienne King, all that being said, I do feel like Adrienne King does a terrific job of portraying that character, and she brings her to life, especially towards the end. But the character of Alice Hardy as a whole, I mean, she seems vulnerable and, but she's surprisingly tough. Overall, she's cute, fun, she's artistic, and she's not afraid to throw down when she's pushed to the limit. But, like I said, I feel like the only reason why Adrienne King is so iconic is the fact that she's associated with the first film. She is kind of the Jamie Lee Curtis of the series, if you wanted to kind of draw that comparison. And I even like the fact that she's not like a virginal character. People always say that Alice is a virginal final girl. But no, I mean, she's very flirty. She does drugs in the movie. I mean, she's not this prototype. Overall, I love Alice Hardy. I just, she lands at number 5, and that's it. That's all I can say about it. Coming in at number 4 is Trish Jarvis in Friday the 13th, Part 4, The Final Chapter, played by Kimberly Beck, who does an awesome job, by the way. I love Trish. She's like the charming girl next door. She adds a lot of heart to the movie. She takes care of her brother. She spends a lot of time with her mom. She goes running around the lake with her. She's not entirely the strongest character, but she's quick to react. I like how in the last act of Friday the 13th, Part 4, she's just, she throws down. She doesn't really have much of a plan. She just reacts, and she reacts quickly. And it also seems like her fear is realistic, too. She has the will to survive. There's that whole part in Part 4 where, she's just swinging at Jason and she's just fighting him. She's just fighting. She does, like I said, she doesn't really have a plan. She's just kind of throwing down and going toe-to-toe with Jason and trying to do anything to survive. I mean, at one point, she jumps out the fucking window, and I don't think we've ever seen another final girl do that. And I guess I just like the relationship she has with her family. And that's one thing I really like about Part 4, by the way, is the fact that they really draw these characters out as flesh and blood types. And I just like Kimberly Beck as an actor anyway. I kind of grew up seeing her in stuff like Marnie and Massacre at Central High. And I feel like Kimberly Beck just really brings a certain likable quality to her. She feels human, and she's definitely not a stereotype, and she's just sexy as hell. I'm sorry, I may be biased, I may be judging Trish on just her physical looks alone, but she's just sexy. I love Trish. I always had a crush on her. But anyway, that's number 4. And speaking of sexy, number 3 would have to be Megan Garris in Friday the 13th, Part 6, Jason Lives. I mean, let's be honest. Who doesn't love Megan Garris? Jennifer Cook does an amazing job with this character. She's funny. She's foxy. She's smart as a whip. She breaks Tommy out of jail. She doesn't take shit from men either, like even her dad. I like that about her. It's weird because at the beginning, Megan doesn't seem like she's going to be, like an heroic type. She almost seems like she's somebody that could be killed instantly, because she's kind of got this smart-ass attitude about her, and you pick up on that right away. She's just got this sassy quality to her, and she's also really funny, and normally, like, funny characters get killed off in the Friday the 13th films, but Megan just has this attitude, and it really comes to the forefront towards the end. But yeah, she does seem like somebody that could get slashed easily, but you start seeing this determinism in her, and especially towards the end when she tries to save the kids in the cabin and Tommy's telling her not to. But overall, I mean, I know it's Tommy's film, but she really is the one that dukes it out with Jason. She uses the boat motor at the end to, grind Jason's ass into dog meat at the end, and it's just cool. And, you're thinking that Tommy's plan is going to work, and he puts the chain around Jason's neck, and, the boulder sinks to the bottom, and you're thinking that's it. But ultimately, Tommy's plan doesn't work, and Megan has to do whatever she can to take Jason out, and she does. And she just exudes femininity. She's the kind of girl I always wanted to date whenever I was growing up, you know, just blonde and sassy and not afraid to express her sexuality. Plus, her orange Camaro is just badass. Any chick that can drive a car like that is a keeper. That whole scene when she's running from the cops and you got the Alice Cooper Hard Rock Summer in the USA song playing, that whole scene is just fucking cinematic gold. But yeah, Megan Garris does it for me. She don't clown around and she takes hairy turns. Now, coming in at number 2 is Jenny Field in Friday the 13th Part 2, played by Amy Steele. And I know that might be controversial for some, because some of you have probably already figured out who my number 1 is. But yeah, I love Jenny Field. And she used to be my number 1. And to be honest, it kind of goes back and forth. But I feel like, you know, Jenny, she's cute. I mean, she's very resourceful. She's got the whole thing, you know, where she majored in child psychology, and that sequence towards the end, you know, with her and Jason, where she dresses up like Pamela, you know, she acts like Jason's mom, and that's her really expressing, you know, the depths of her character. I feel like they didn't, you know, a lot of the Friday the 13th girls were kind of one dimensional, and she just felt like she just seemed like she had these layers of complexity and depth to her character, and it really just draws me in. And I think it's the performance of Amy Steele too. I feel like she does a bang up job. In the beginning, she seems kind of witty, you know, and vulnerable, and somebody that could easily be taken advantage of. But then you find out that, you know, she's outsmarting Paul, and that sort of foreshadows everything else that comes in the film later on. The fact that she, you know, she wins the chess game with Paul, she's in tune with the human side of Jason pretty much, and that kind of separates her from most of the final girls. The fact that she's able to, you know, kind of get inside of herself and realize, hey, you know, I got to do what I got to do to relate to this guy so I can survive. And when she makes that decision towards the end, it's on the fly. You know, she's doing what she has to do, and it doesn't quite pan out. It doesn't work entirely. And then you have the whole Deus Ex Machina thing with, you know, Paul coming in to save her ass. But I mean, Jenny puts up a fight. I mean, she uses her intelligence and her resilience to overcome everything. She's real confident, but yet she's got this like demure quality to her that I feel it just makes her real human and relatable. I love Jenny. Jenny's very personable. My only complaint, and this is why she's not at number 1 for me anymore, it's the fact that, you know, towards the end she could have killed Jason, but she takes the machete and she just plants it right in his shoulder, and you know, and it's also kind of like Paul's doing most of the fighting there towards the end, and you know, I don't know. I just feel like Jenny could have done more. And compared to my number 1, I feel like she's been dethroned a little bit. Okay, moment of truth, guys. Now, you've probably already figured this out, but my number 1 pick, my number 1 final girl in the parts 1 through 8 Paramount franchise is going to have to be Chris Higgins, played by Dana Kimmel in Friday the 13th, Part 3, 3D. First off, I've always had a crush on Chris. I always thought she was fine as hell. And that hasn't waned at all. Like, every time I watch Part 3, I'm just like, damn, Chris, damn. She was just, I don't know, she's a brunette. She's not the typical blonde that you see in all the Friday the 13th films. A lot of people tried to label Chris as obnoxious or unlikable, but I mean, I disagree. I feel like she's charming, and I feel like Dana Kimmel just really plays the hell out of it. Now, some people have tried to discount the character of Chris because, you know, she goes crazy at the end, and, you know, but I feel like one of the most interesting things about her is the fact that she does overcome the most trauma. I mean, she's had very traumatic experiences, and she has survived Jason before. She survived an encounter with Jason before, so you got to give her credit for that. I mean, and by the way, who wouldn't go crazy at the end of Part 3? Like, I mean, dude, she's been through the ringer. I feel like some of the strongest, most resilient people in the world are the ones who experience the most trauma, or the ones who've overcome the most trauma. And it's not just the internal struggle. It's not like the internal psychological struggle with Chris's character. It's not just that. It's the external conflict that she has with Jason. I mean, Chris is a fucking fighter, man, till the end. I mean, she just starts coming at Jason all wide-eyed and psycho-like, just, you know, swinging the knife, and then eventually she stabs him in the leg. You know, and Chris is just, she's just nonstop, man. She's relentless, and she'll do whatever she has to do to survive. I mean, there's that one part where she brings a whole goddamn bookshelf on top of Jason, and then she smashes his head with a damn log. Then, when you get into the barn, There's several instances where she has to kick his ass repeatedly again. I think at one point she takes the shovel and she beats his ass when he comes up in the loft, and then she hangs him like with the rope, the hay pulley. There's that one part where she just drops off the rafters and just lands on Jason. I thought that was kind of ballsy. And then last but not least, she takes the axe and she swings it in his head, in his fucking head. Now, and this is why, she's my number one, is because Jenny had a chance to kill Jason in the second one, and she just goes with the machete in the shoulder. And, Jenny just kind of, she has a breakdown, and we don't really know what happens with Jenny at the end. We don't know if it's a dream. But everything with Chris is kind of, it's realistic, and it really, even though she gets pulled down in the lake by zombie Mrs. Voorhees or whatever, I don't really think much about that part. I just always think about Chris kind of losing her mind at the end, and like I said, who wouldn't? I mean, she's been through the shit, and I feel like she's just the most, she's the strongest, most formidable final girl in this series. I just feel like something they did in the third film that they didn't do in a lot of the subsequent films, they delve into the character of Chris a lot to make you care about her, and it makes her seem way more human than any of the other final girls in my opinion. But yeah, to me, Dana Kimmel is it. She is it. She wins hands down. Dana Kimmel as Chris Higgins in Friday the 13th Part 3. I could go on about these final girls, but that's it, guys. I think I've said enough. Real quick, I just want to mention that, just so I don't leave the other final girls out, we'll consider these honorable mentions since I know that some of these girls are awesome, but since we didn't include them in this list, I just want to mention Laurie Campbell in Freddy vs. Jason, played by Monica Keena. She does a good job. She's great. Jessica Kimball in Jason Goes to Hell. I mean, she's all right, but really John D. LeMay does most of the heavy lifting in that film, and really the only thing that Carrie Keegan does is plant that knife in Jason's chest at the end, and other than that, she's kind of a forgettable character. Then you have the character of Whitney in the remake, played by Amanda Rigetti. And she's okay, but you're kind of fooled in the remake because you think like Danielle Panabaker is going to be the final girl, but it turns out it's Whitney, and she just doesn't seem like she has a lot to do in the film. But she's okay, she's serviceable. But honestly, my favorite final girl out of all the honorable mention types would have to be Lexa Doig in Jason X. I don't really consider her like a final girl because she just seems like she's more of a Ripley type, because Jason X doesn't really, it's not a slasher movie, it's just Jason in space, so I don't really consider Lexa Doig as Rowan a final girl. But Lexa Doig would have to be my favorite out of all those honorable mentions. So that is it, guys. That is my final girl ranking of Friday the 13th, and I feel like I ranked them all anyway, but that's pretty much my ranking for parts 1 through 8. Like I said, Chris Higgins is my favorite, and if you guys got some differing opinions, just drop them in the comments. Be sure to stab the like button. You've been listening to Rich with Red Phone Video, and watch some Friday the 13th films. That's what I've been doing the past 2 days. Like I said, I've been really depressed, and these Jason films have just, really boosted my dopamine levels. There's never really a bad time to watch Friday the 13th films, in my opinion. I'm always in the mood to pop them in. But with that, guys, that is it. That is the video. Until next time, take care. Have a horrific day. Watch some awesome horror movies. And I'll catch you next time.